Taeyong stood in the cold conference room, staring at the 7 holographic images floating before him. Each image showed a different alien princess, and one of them would become Earth's connection to the stars. The decision felt heavy on his shoulders, like wearing armor that didn't quite fit. His advisor Hyun stood beside him, arms crossed, studying the profiles with careful eyes. On his other side, Somin tapped her datapad, pulling up information about each candidate. The room hummed with the soft sound of the projectors, and through the window, distant stars glittered like scattered diamonds. "The Valari princess would give us military protection," Hyun said quietly. "Their fleet controls 3 major jump gates." "That's power, Taeyong." Taeyong nodded but didn't speak. He looked at Princess Sayla of Velar. She was stunning by any measure. Her body made of what looked like living crystal that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. Her profile listed victories in war games, diplomatic triumphs, connections to the oldest families in the galaxy. Everything about her screamed importance. "Princess Thala of Thorn would give us cultural prestige," Somin added. "Her people are known for art and philosophy. They host the grand exhibition every cycle. Earth would be seen as sophisticated." Princess Thela's image showed a being with 6 graceful arms and flowing features that seemed to shift like water. Beautiful, elegant, perfect for holovids and public appearances. Taeyong scrolled through the other options. Princess Mira of the Luminous Courts, whose people could manipulate light itself. Princess Nira of the Cascade Worlds, with wings that sparkled like stained glass. Each one represented something valuable. Each one was breathtaking to look at. Each one came from a powerful civilization that could help Earth survive in the dangerous political waters of galactic society. Then his finger stopped on the 7th profile, Princess Kiva of the Gren Commonwealth. The hologram showed someone completely different. Where the others were designed to impress, Kiva looked like she'd been built for function. Her skin was mottled gray-green with darker patches that might have been scars or birthmarks. Her body was stocky and solid, without any of the flowing grace the other princesses had. Her face was asymmetrical, with deep-set eyes that looked almost black in the image. She wore simple clothing, nothing fancy or decorated. "That one is interesting," Hyun said carefully, which was his polite way of saying he didn't understand why she was even on the list. Taeyong opened her full file. Most of the other profiles were 5 or 6 pages long, full of formal achievements and social connections. Kiva's file was 40 pages. He started reading. She had studied engineering at 3 different universities. She'd designed irrigation systems that saved colony worlds when their water supplies failed. During a stellar plague that killed thousands, she'd personally led medical teams into quarantine zones, working 18-hour shifts for months. She'd written papers on agricultural sustainability that were still used as textbooks. She spoke 7 languages. She'd rebuilt her family's damaged estate with her own hands after a meteor strike, refusing to hire others when her people needed workers for more important repairs. "What's their military strength?" Somin asked, pulling up the Gren Commonwealth strategic data. "Minimal," Hyun answered. "Small sector, old ships, mostly defensive positions. They border something called the Rift Zones, but nothing important passes through there. Choosing her would give us almost no political advantage." Taeyong kept reading. There was a note buried in the file about why Kiva had never been married despite being of age. Subject's physical appearance falls significantly below galactic aesthetic standards. It said clinically, limited romantic prospects despite favorable personality assessments and intellectual achievements. He felt something twist in his chest. They'd written her off because of how she looked. This brilliant, accomplished person was dismissed as an afterthought because she didn't sparkle or glow or have the right proportions. "Pull up Earth's history file," Taeyong said suddenly. "The one about first contact." Somin looked confused but did it. The file appeared, showing Earth's early years in galactic society. The comments from other species were not kind. Too aggressive, emotionally unstable, short-lived and inefficient, physically weak compared to optimal standards. We were the ugly ones too. Taeyang said quietly. Everyone looked at humans and saw something wrong. Too violent. Too messy. Too different. They dismissed us. That was different, Hyun protested. We proved ourselves through people giving us a chance when it didn't make strategic sense, Taeyang interrupted. Through someone looking past the surface and seeing what we could actually do. He looked at all 7 images again. 6 perfect princesses from powerful families, each one a safe, logical choice. And 1 overlooked genius from a forgotten corner of space, someone who'd spent her life actually doing things instead of just looking impressive while others did them. Taeyang thought about Earth's journey. Humans had survived ice ages, wars, diseases, and their own worst impulses. They'd crawled up from caves to reach the stars not because they were perfect, but because they refused to quit. They won not through elegance but through sheer, stubborn determination. I'm choosing Kiva, he said. The room went silent. Hyun and Saman stared at him. Taeyang, think about this, Hyun said carefully. The other delegations expect you to choose Sayla or Thela. If you pick the Gren princess, they'll think we're naive. They'll think we don't understand how this works. Maybe we don't, Taeyang agreed. Maybe we understand something different. Something better. The media coverage alone will be brutal. Saman warned. She's not. I mean, the public expects a certain image. The public expects what they're told to expect, Taeyang said. He pulled up Kiva's engineering papers, her medical innovations, her actual track record of making life better for real people. This is someone who does things, who solves problems, who works instead of poses. That's what Earth needs. Hyun sighed deeply. You're sure about this? Completely. It's your career if this goes wrong, Hyun warned. Then we fail together, Taeyang said. But I don't think we will. The next day, in the Grand Council chamber filled with representatives from 100 worlds, Taeyang stood before the assembled delegates. The room was beautiful, all flowing architecture and carefully designed lighting. Everyone there looked perfect, dressed in their finest, showing off their best features. The Valari ambassador leaned forward expectantly. The Thorn delegation smiled, confident. Even the luminous courts had sent extra observers, sure that Earth would make the obvious choice. Earth has made its decision, Taeyang said, his voice carrying across the chamber. He paused, looking at all the expectant faces. We choose Princess Kiva of the Gren Commonwealth. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then, the room exploded into confused conversation. The Valari ambassador stood up, his crystalline face showing shock. The Thorn delegation turned to each other, speaking rapidly in their flowing language. Even the neutral observers looked surprised. Taeyang stood still, keeping his expression calm. Beside him, Hyun and Somin tried to look confident. Around them, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy tried to understand what had just happened. In the back of the chamber, a small door opened. A stocky figure in simple gray clothing walked through, flanked by 2 advisors. Princess Kiva had arrived to meet her future husband, her dark eyes scanning the confused crowd with an expression that might have been amusement or might have been resignation. Taeyang watched her approach and felt certain he'd made the right choice. Let them be confused. Let them question. Earth hadn't reached the stars by doing what everyone expected. The criticism started within hours. By the next morning, Earth's communication channels were flooded with messages from other delegations. Most were carefully worded diplomatic letters, questioning the decision. Some were less polite. The Valari ambassador sent a formal protest, calling the choice a concerning sign of Earth's judgment in galactic affairs. The Thorn delegation simply canceled 3 scheduled cultural exchanges without explanation. Smaller powers that had been friendly suddenly found reasons to delay trade negotiations. Even worse was the reaction from Earth itself. The news broadcasts showed confused anchors, trying to explain the choice to equally confused viewers. Social media exploded with debates. Politicians called for investigations. Some accused Taeyang of taking bribes. Others suggested he'd simply panicked under pressure. They're calling you an idiot on 30 different worlds, Hyun said tiredly. scrolling through messages on his datapad. They sat in a small meeting room, away from the crowds and cameras. The nice ones are calling you eccentric. What are the mean ones calling me? Taeyang asked. You don't want to know. Salmin looked up from her own pad. Some of our own diplomatic corps is questioning this. Ambassador Park sent a private message asking if you need medical evaluation. Taeyang almost laughed at that, but it wasn't really funny. He'd gambled his career and maybe damaged Earth's standing in galactic society. If this went badly, history would remember him as the fool who ruined humanity's best chance at acceptance among the stars. The door chimed. Princess Kiva has arrived for the scheduled meeting, an automated voice announced. Taeyang stood up, straightening his uniform. Hyun and Somin exchanged glances. They'd all seen the holograms, but none of them had met Kiva in person yet. The door opened. Princess Kiva walked in, and Taeyang's first thought was that the hologram hadn't captured her correctly. She was shorter than he'd expected, barely reaching his shoulder. The mottled patterns on her gray-green skin were more pronounced in person. Darker patches spreading across her arms and neck, like maps of unknown territories. Her eyes, which had looked black in the image, were actually a very dark green, like the depths of an old forest. She wasn't alone. 2 advisors followed her, both Gren, both carrying the same solid, functional appearance their princess had. They looked like people who worked for a living, not decorative courtiers. Captain Kim, Kiva said. Her voice was deeper than he'd expected, with a resonant quality that made it easy to hear every word clearly. I assume you have strategic reasons for your choice. Number 4. No greeting. No formal pleasantries. Straight to business. Taeyang appreciated that. Your file suggested you were the most qualified candidate, he said honestly. My file, Kiva repeated. She glanced at her advisors, and something that might have been surprise crossed her face. Most people don't read past the first page of my file. I read all 40 pages. Now she definitely looked surprised. Her dark eyes studied him carefully, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Why? Because that's where the important information was, Taeyang said. The irrigation systems you designed for the Kelmar colonies, the medical protocols you developed during the Crimson Plague, your work on sustainable agriculture in low-gravity environments. Those accomplishments matter more than court politics. Kiva stood very still. Her advisors exchanged glances. The room felt charged with something Taeyang couldn't quite name. Nobody has mentioned those projects to me in years, Kiva said quietly. Most people prefer to discuss my family's ancient lineage or our territorial borders. The irrigation systems are not considered appropriate conversation for a princess. That seems backwards, Taeyang said. Saving 3 colony worlds should be more impressive than having old ancestors. For the first time, Kiva's serious expression cracked slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, but close. You're either very clever or very strange, Captain Kim. Probably both, Hyun muttered from the side. Over the next few days, the formal engagement process began. There were meetings to attend, documents to sign, traditions to observe from both cultures. Taeyang and Kiva were scheduled to spend time together, supposedly to build understanding before the wedding. Their first formal dinner was awkward. They sat in a private dining room with too many forks and too much silence. Kiva ate carefully, methodically, like someone who'd learned proper etiquette but didn't enjoy it much. This is ridiculous, she said finally, putting down her fork. We're both pretending to enjoy formal dining when we'd rather be doing something useful. Completely agree, Taeyang said, relieved. I have 3 reports to review about water distribution problems in the outer settlements, Kiva continued. And I'm sitting here eating tiny portions of expensive food I can't even taste properly. My people evolved different taste receptors after the radiation exposure. This all just tastes like variations of bitter. You're eating food you can't taste for my benefit? For diplomatic protocol's benefit, Kiva corrected. Though yes, technically for you. Taeyang made a decision. He stood up, grabbed his plate, and walked to the door. Come on. Where are we going? The station has an observation deck on level 7. It's usually empty. We can eat there, and you can tell me about the water distribution problems. Kiva stared at him for a moment, then smiled. It transformed her face completely. That sounds much better. They spent the evening in the observation deck, sitting on the floor with their plates balanced on their knees, watching stars drift past the massive windows. Kiva explained the complex water issues facing the outer settlements, drawing diagrams in the air with her finger. Taeyong told her about Earth's own water wars, and how humans had finally learned to manage the problem. Your people fought over water? Kiva asked. For thousands of years, Taeyong confirmed. We're not exactly a perfect species. No species is, Kiva said. Though most pretend to be in front of the Galactic Council. She told him about the Gren people's history then. 3 centuries ago, their sun had become unstable, throwing off massive radiation bursts. They'd had 2 choices: evacuate their system or adapt. They'd chosen adaptation, using genetic engineering to make themselves resistant to radiation that would kill most galactic species. The modifications changed how we look, Kiva explained, tracing the modeled patterns on her arm. These marks appear during puberty. They're areas of enhanced cellular repair. Very useful for survival. Very ugly by galactic beauty standards. They're not ugly, Taeyong said. They're proof your people chose survival. That's strength, not ugliness. Kiva looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. You're a strange human, Taeyong Kim. I'll take that as a compliment. More evenings followed in the observation deck. They talked about engineering, politics, history, and stupid things that made them laugh. Salmon found them one night sitting on the floor, surrounded by data pads, arguing about the best way to design a jump gate while eating sandwiches from the station's cafeteria. This is the strangest diplomatic courtship I've ever seen, Salmon said. It's better than the formal dinners, Kiva replied, without looking up from her calculations. Those chairs are uncomfortable. Taeyong watched Kiva work, her thick fingers moving quickly across the data pad, her mind solving problems that would stump most engineers. He thought about all those other princesses, with their perfect beauty and their impressive lineages. None of them could do what Kiva could do. None of them would sit on a floor covered in crumbs, enthusiastically explaining gravitational mathematics at midnight. I made the right choice, he said quietly. Kiva looked up, met his eyes, and smiled that smile that transformed her whole face. Yes, she agreed. You did. In his quarters later, Hyun found Taeyong staring out the window at the stars. You actually like her, Hyun said. It wasn't a question. I do, Taeyong admitted. She's brilliant and funny, and completely honest. When was the last time you met someone in galactic politics who was completely honest? Never, Hyun said. That's not how politics works. Maybe it should be, Hyun sighed. The criticism isn't stopping. Earth's government is getting pressure from a dozen directions. Some are saying we should cancel the engagement. Choose someone else. We won't, Taeyong said firmly. Even if it costs you everything? Taeyong thought about Kiva's smile, her intelligence, the way she saw problems as challenges to solve, rather than obstacles to avoid. He thought about doing the safe thing versus doing the right thing. Even then, he said. The weeks passed, and Taeyong found himself spending more time with Kiva than protocol strictly required. They'd abandoned the formal meeting rooms entirely, preferring the observation deck or sometimes the station's botanical gardens, where Kiva could examine the various plant species with the enthusiasm of someone who'd designed agricultural systems for a living. One evening, they sat in the gardens near a cluster of earth roses. Kiva reached out carefully to touch a petal, her thick fingers surprisingly gentle. We had flowers like this once, she said quietly. Before the radiation events. Delicate things with thin petals. They all died in the first wave of exposure. Now our flowers are thick and waxy. Practical but not very beautiful. Beauty isn't just about being delicate, Taeyong said. Tell that to the Galactic Council. Kiva replied with a bitter laugh. They have beauty standards published in 17 volumes. The Gren people fail on almost every measure. She pulled her hand back from the rose, and Taeyang noticed again the patterns on her skin. In the garden's soft lighting, they almost seemed to glow faintly. "Tell me the real story," he said. "Not the official history. The personal one." Kiva was quiet for a long moment. Then she started talking. "I was 7 when the modifications became visible," she began. "Young Gren children look almost like any other species. Smooth skin, symmetrical features. I was pretty by galactic standards. My parents took me to diplomatic functions. People smiled at me, called me adorable." She traced one of the dark patches on her arm. "Then puberty started. The cellular repair systems activated. The radiation resistance developed. Within a year, I looked like this." People stopped smiling. I heard whispers. "What happened to the pretty princess? Such a shame. Poor thing." "That's horrible," Taeyang said. "It gets worse," Kiva continued. "My younger sister Mina developed the modifications differently. Hers are lighter, more symmetrical. She's still considered attractive by galactic standards. Even with the markings. She got the diplomatic assignments, the public appearances. I got sent to engineering schools because that's what you do with ugly children. Hide them somewhere useful." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Kiva said firmly. "The engineering schools taught me how to build things, fix things, make things work. While Mina was learning to smile for cameras, I was learning to save lives. She's trapped in a pretty cage. I'm free to actually do things." She looked at Taeyang directly. "But I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. Being dismissed because of how you look. Having your accomplishments ignored because people can't see past your appearance. Watching others with half your skill get opportunities you'll never have." Taeyang understood more than she might think. Earth went through something similar. When we first joined galactic society, we were seen as primitive, violent cave dwellers who'd somehow stumbled into space travel. It didn't matter that we'd survived ice ages and built civilizations. All they saw was what we looked like compared to them. "How did you change their minds?" "We didn't," Taeyang said. "Not really. We just kept going. Kept working. Eventually, some people looked past the surface. Most still haven't." Kiva nodded slowly. "We're both the uncomfortable species. Maybe that's why this works," Taeyang suggested. "We understand each other." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Earth's roses sway in the artificial breeze. Then Kiva spoke again. "There's a Gren practice called deep seeing," she said. "It's a meditation technique our people developed. When you look at something, you're supposed to see beyond the immediate appearance. See the history, the function, the reason things are the way they are. Can you teach me?" "It's usually only taught to Gren children," Kiva said, but she looked pleased by his interest. "But I suppose we're trying to blend cultures." "Close your eyes." Taeyang closed his eyes. "Now open them, but don't focus," Kiva instructed. "Let your vision soften. Look at my hand. But don't see hand. See the history written there. See the purpose." Taeyang tried. At first, he just saw Kiva's hand, the same mottled gray-green skin, the thick fingers. But as he let his focus soften, something shifted. The dark patches weren't random. They formed patterns, like growth rings in a tree. Each one told a story of adaptation. The thickness of her fingers wasn't crude. It was strong. Built for gripping tools in high-radiation environments where most species would need heavy protective gloves. "I see it," he said quietly. "It's like reading a map. Every feature has a reason." "Now you understand deep seeing," Kiva said. "When my people look at each other, we don't see ugliness. We see survival. We see strength. We see the price our ancestors paid, so we could exist." "You're beautiful," Taeyang said suddenly, and he meant it with a clarity that surprised him. "Not in spite of these features. Because of them. Every mark, every pattern, it's all evidence of your people refusing to give up. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Kiva's eyes widened. In the garden's soft light, they looked less black and more like deep green forest pools. "No one has said that to me since I was a child." she whispered. Before the markings. Then everyone else is blind, Taeyang said. Or they've forgotten what beauty actually means. She looked away, but not before he saw tears forming in those dark green eyes. You're going to make me cry, Taeyang Kim, and that's very undignified for a princess. Cry if you want, he said. I won't tell anyone. She laughed, a wet sound, and wiped at her eyes. I had prepared myself for a political marriage. Mutual respect, maybe friendship eventually. I didn't expect this. Expect what? To actually fall in love, Kiva said simply. Taeyang's heart did something strange in his chest. Would it help if I said I was falling in love too? Yes, Kiva said, and kissed him. Her lips were different from a human's, thicker and surprisingly warm. The kiss was brief, almost hesitant, but it felt like a promise. When she pulled back, she was smiling, that smile that transformed her entire face. This is going to complicate the political situation, she said practically. Everything about this complicates the political situation, Taeyang replied. Might as well complicate it thoroughly. They spent more time together after that. Not as diplomatic partners but as two people genuinely interested in each other. Kiva showed him Gren art, which looked crude at first glance but revealed incredible complexity when viewed with deep seeing. Taeyang shared earth music, which Kiva couldn't hear properly, but she appreciated the mathematical patterns in the composition. But the outside situation was getting worse. Not better. Hyun brought reports of increasing diplomatic pressure. The Valari had started trade restrictions on human goods. The Thorn Collective was spreading rumors about Earth's reliability. Smaller powers were watching, waiting to see if the human experiment would fail. They want us to cancel the engagement, Hyun said bluntly one morning. Multiple delegations have suggested it. They say we can still save face. Blame it on cultural misunderstandings. Choose someone else. No, Taeyang said. I know you have feelings now. Hyun said gently. But think about Earth. We're being isolated. Trade routes are closing. Defense pacts are being questioned. Is one relationship worth risking humanity's place in galactic society? It's not one relationship, Taeyang argued. It's the principle. If we cave to this pressure, we're admitting they're right. That appearances matter more than substance, that we'll abandon our choices when they become difficult. Is that who humans are? It's who we might have to be to survive, Hyun said. That evening, Taeyang found Kiva in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She looked tired. You've heard, she said, without turning around. About the pressure? Yes. My own government is suggesting I withdraw, Kiva said quietly. To spare both our peoples the complications. They say there are other ways to build alliances. Ways that don't require everyone to be uncomfortable with the Gren princess and the naive human captain. What do you want to do? Taeyang asked. Kiva turned to face him. I want to stay. I want to marry you. I want to prove that they're all wrong. But I don't want to destroy Earth's future in the process. Or my people's. What if we're not destroying anything? Taeyang said. What if we're building something better? A different way of doing things? That's optimistic. Humans are good at optimism, Taeyang said. It's how we survived when we probably shouldn't have. Kiva smiled sadly. Gren, people are good at surviving too. But sometimes, survival means making hard choices. And sometimes it means refusing to give up. Taeyang countered. He took her hands, feeling the rough texture of her skin, seeing the beautiful complexity of her markings. Let them pressure us. Let them criticize. We'll keep going anyway. You really believe that will work? I have to, Taeyang said. Because the alternative is admitting that appearances matter more than truth, that politics matter more than people, and I refuse to believe that. Kiva squeezed his hands. Then we keep going. Together. Taeyang agreed. Outside the observation deck, the galaxy continued its ancient dance. Powers maneuvered, politicians schemed, and diplomats whispered in corners. But in that moment, two people from overlooked species held hands and decided that sometimes the right choice was worth the cost, no matter how high. The emergency alert came at 3 in the morning. Station time. Taeyang jerked awake to flashing red lights and a blaring alarm. His communication pad was vibrating so hard it fell off the bedside table. "Captain Kim, we have a situation." Hyun's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Council chamber, now." Taeyang threw on his uniform and ran. The station corridors were full of people rushing in different directions. Something big was happening. When he reached the council chamber, it was chaos. Delegates shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Holographic displays showed something that made his stomach drop. A massive spatial anomaly had erupted in the rift zones. The display showed it as a growing red mass, pulsing and expanding like a living thing. It was already the size of a small moon and getting bigger. "What is that?" Taeyang asked, finding Hyun in the crowd. "Nobody knows exactly," Hyun said. "Spatial tear, maybe. Or a gravitic collapse. It appeared 6 hours ago and it's growing exponentially. At current rate, it'll swallow the gamma trade route in 3 days. Maybe longer routes after that. Maybe." The gamma route was one of the major shipping lanes in this sector. Millions of ships used it every month. If it collapsed, half the galaxy's trade would be disrupted. The Valari ambassador was speaking loudly. "My people propose a military cordon. We contain the anomaly with gravitational dampeners while we study it. That will take too long," the Thorn delegate argued. "We should attempt immediate stabilization with quantum anchors." "Your quantum anchors failed at the Keskin incident," another voice pointed out. "Thousands died." The argument spiraled. Everyone had opinions, but no one had answers. Taeyang looked at the display, watching the red mass pulse and grow. Each pulse looked like a heartbeat, like the anomaly was alive. A familiar voice spoke from behind him. "It's not alive. But you're right that it looks organic." Taeyang turned. Kiva stood there, still in sleeping clothes with a coat thrown over them. Her hair was messy, but her eyes were focused on the display with an intensity he recognized. She was solving a problem. "You've seen something like this before," he said. "Not this big," Kiva admitted. "But yes, the rift zones produce smaller versions every few years. My people have been studying them for generations. We live right next to this region." She pushed through the crowd to the main display, ignoring the startled looks from other delegates. With quick movements, she pulled up additional data, overlaying it on the anomaly. "Look at the expansion pattern," she said, speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "It's not random. See these pulses? They're following gravitational stress lines in the fabric of space. The anomaly is feeding on existing weaknesses." The Valari ambassador looked skeptical. "The Gren people are hardly experts in advanced spatial mechanics. We're experts in surviving next to dangerous space," Kiva replied coolly. "We've developed specialized technology specifically for high radiation, unstable gravitational environments. We have to. It's where we live." She pulled up more data. Taeyang recognized some of it from their late-night conversations about her engineering work. Kiva had been studying the rift zones her entire adult life, not for glory or recognition, but because it was necessary for her people's survival. "The standard approaches won't work," Kiva continued. "Military cordons will just feed it more mass. Quantum anchors will shatter under the gravitational stress. What you need is a network of adaptive stabilizers that can adjust to the changing conditions. And I suppose your people just happen to have such technology?" The Thorn delegate sounded sarcastic. "Yes," Kiva said simply. "We do. We've been using them for 70 years to protect our settlements from smaller anomalies. We've never needed to deploy them at this scale, but the principle is sound." The council chamber erupted into argument again. Some delegates dismissed the idea immediately. Others wanted proof. The Valari ambassador suggested waiting for their own scientists to study the situation. Time wasted, while the anomaly grew. Taeyang made a decision. He activated his communication link to Earth's military command. "Captain Kim to Fleet Admiral Yoon," he said clearly, loud enough for others to hear. "Request authorization to commit Earth's deep space fleet to immediate deployment for crisis response." The chamber went quiet. Everyone stared at him. You can't commit military assets without council approval, the Valari ambassador protested. Earth is a sovereign world, Taeyang replied. We can deploy our forces as we see fit. We choose to assist the Gren Commonwealth in their stabilization effort. Admiral Yoon's voice came through, gravelly and uncertain. Captain, this is a major commitment. Are you certain? Completely certain, sir, Taeyang said. The Gren have the solution. We have ships that can get there fast. Between us, we can stop this before it becomes worse. There was a pause. Then, authorization granted. Fleet will deploy within the hour. Yoon out. Kiva was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You just bet Earth's military reputation on my people's technology. No, Taeyang corrected. I bet it on you. Now let's get to work. The next hours were controlled chaos. Kiva contacted her government, getting authorization to deploy their stabilizer technology. Earth's fleet, small but fast, prepared for immediate departure. Other delegates watched with a mixture of skepticism and concern. Salmon pulled Taeyang aside. Do you know what you're doing? If this fails, Earth looks foolish and militarily weak. If this fails, the rift swallows trade routes and people die, Taeyang said. We're doing what's right. The operation launched at dawn. Earth's fleet of 12 ships, led by Taeyang and the command vessel, jumped to the rift zones alongside 3 Gren engineering ships. Kiva insisted on being on the lead Gren vessel, despite the danger. I designed these systems, she'd said firmly. I need to be there to adjust them in real time. The rift zones were terrifying. Space itself looked wrong here, twisted and folded in ways that hurt to look at. The anomaly was visible even without sensors. A massive tear in reality that pulsed with sick red light. All ships, this is Captain Kim, Taeyang spoke into the fleet channel. Remember, we're here to support the Gren engineering teams. Stay in formation and be ready for rapid maneuvers. Kiva's voice came through on a private channel. Taeyang, the radiation levels here are extreme. Your ships aren't built for this environment. We'll manage, he said. You just focus on deploying those stabilizers. The Gren ships moved toward the anomaly with careful precision. They began launching the stabilizers, small devices that looked insignificant against the massive tear in space. But as each one activated, Taeyang saw the readings change. The anomaly's expansion slowed slightly. It's working, Hyun said from his station. The stabilizers are creating a containment network. Then alarms blared. A massive wave of energy erupted from the anomaly, catching one of the Gren ships in its path. The ship tumbled, its engines failing. They're caught in a gravitational shear, Kiva's voice came through, strained. We can't reach them from this position. Taeyang looked at the readings. The disabled ship was being pulled slowly toward the anomaly. In minutes, it would be torn apart. He made a decision that was either brilliant or insane. All Earth ships, form on me, he ordered. We're going in. Captain, that's suicide, his navigator protested. That's an order, Taeyang said firmly. The human ships dove toward the anomaly, engines at maximum. The radiation was intense, alarms screaming. But they pushed through. Taeyang positioned his ship between the disabled Gren vessel and the anomaly, using his own gravitational wake to create a stable corridor. Gren vessel, this is Captain Kim. You have a 30-second window. Move now. The Gren ship fired its maneuvering thrusters, limping through the corridor Taeyang had created. As soon as they cleared, he pulled back, feeling his ship groan under the gravitational stress. All ships, retreat to safe distance, he ordered. Back at the deployment line, Kiva's voice came through, thick with emotion. You saved my people. You flew into that thing to save them. That's what partners do, Taeyang said simply. The stabilizer deployment continued. Hours passed. Slowly, carefully, the Gren teams built their network around the anomaly. Kiva's voice guided them constantly, adjusting calculations in real time, solving problems as they appeared. Finally, the last stabilizer activated. The entire network hummed to life. and the anomaly began to shrink. It fought, pulsing and twisting. But the stabilizers held. Over the course of an hour, the massive tier in space collapsed back on itself until it was just a small, stable point of distorted space. Containment successful, Kiva announced. The anomaly is stable. It will dissipate naturally over the next few weeks. The combined fleet erupted in cheers. Earth's ships and Gren vessels exchanged congratulatory messages. They'd done it. Against expectations, against doubt, they'd actually solved the crisis. But the real impact came later, when they returned to the station. The entire council had watched the operation through long-range sensors. They'd seen the Gren technology work when traditional solutions would have failed. They'd seen Earth's fleet risk everything to save their allies. They'd seen two overlooked species accomplish what the major powers hadn't even attempted. The Valari ambassador stood when Taeyang and Kiva entered the council chamber. For a moment, Taeyang thought he would protest something. Instead, he bowed slightly. "It seems we have underestimated both humans and the Gren people," he said formally. "Earth's bold action and the Commonwealth's technological expertise have saved countless lives. The Valari hegemony extends its formal gratitude." Other delegates echoed the sentiment. Even the Thorn Collective sent congratulations. The crisis had changed something fundamental. The ugly princess and the naive captain weren't jokes anymore. They were heroes. The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks after the Rift crisis, and suddenly everyone wanted to attend. What had been planned as a modest ceremony became the biggest diplomatic event of the cycle. Delegations that had ignored Earth's previous invitations now sent urgent requests for attendance. The station's event coordinators went from managing a small gathering to coordinating hundreds of guests from across the galaxy. "This is insane," Salmon said, reviewing the guest list for the 10th time. "The Valari are sending their crown prince. The Thorn Collective is bringing their entire cultural ministry. Even the luminous courts want representation, and they never attend anyone's weddings." Taeyang stood in his quarters, adjusting his formal uniform. Through the window, he could see ships arriving constantly. A parade of vessels from every corner of known space, all coming to witness something they would have mocked just months ago. "They're not coming for us," Taeyang said quietly. "They're coming because we proved them wrong. They want to save face." "Does it matter why they come?" Hyun asked. He was serving as Taeyang's best man. A human tradition they decided to include. "The result is the same. Earth has more diplomatic connections now than we've had in decades. Trade agreements are being offered. Defense pacts are being discussed. The Rift crisis changed everything. It had changed things, Taeyang knew, but not in the way the politicians thought. They saw it as Earth and the Gren Commonwealth proving their competence. They saw strategic value, where before they'd seen weakness. They were right about that, but they missed the deeper point. A message chimed on his pad, from Kiva. "Getting nervous yet?" He smiled and typed back. "Terrified." "You?" "Completely calm," she replied. "I've faced spatial anomalies. One wedding is nothing." "Liar." "Okay, maybe a little nervous." The ceremony was held in the station's largest hall, a space designed to accommodate multiple species with different atmospheric requirements. The hall had been decorated with both earth flowers and Gren-growing crystals. A blend of both cultures, delegations filled the seats, a rainbow of species and colors and forms. Taeyang stood at the front with Hyun beside him. His hands were sweating. The music started, a combination of human strings and Gren harmonic crystals that somehow worked together beautifully. Then Kiva appeared at the far end of the hall, and every conversation stopped. She wore traditional Gren ceremonial attire, which didn't hide her features but celebrated them. The fabric was woven with reflective threads that caught the light, making the mottled patterns on her skin look like star maps. Her dark hair was decorated with small crystals that chimed softly as she moved. She wasn't trying to look like other species. She looked completely, authentically Gren, and she was beautiful. Taeyang heard the whispers from the assembled delegates. They weren't cruel whispers this time. They were awed. People were seeing Kiva the way Taeyang had learned to see her, not as failing to meet standards but as something unique and remarkable in her own right. Kiva walked down the aisle with her head held high. No hesitation in her steps. When she reached Taeyang, she smiled that smile that transformed her face. "You look terrified," she whispered. "You look perfect," he whispered back. The ceremony blended human and Gren traditions. They exchanged words in both languages. They completed the Gren ritual of shared seeing, where they looked into each other's eyes and spoke aloud what they saw beneath the surface. Kiva saw Taeyang's courage and kindness. Taeyang saw Kiva's strength and brilliant mind. When it came time for the Earth tradition of kissing, Kiva leaned in and whispered, "Still sure about this?" "Last chance to back out." "Never," Taeyang said, and kissed her in front of the entire galaxy. The reception was unlike anything Taeyang had experienced. Delegates who'd been cold before now wanted conversations. The Valari Crown Prince personally congratulated them and suggested a military cooperation agreement. The Thorn Cultural Minister discussed artistic exchanges. Even smaller powers approached with trade proposals and alliance offers. But the most meaningful moment came when a young Gren couple approached Kiva. The woman's skin showed the same mottled patterns as Kiva's, perhaps more pronounced. She was crying. "Your Highness," the young woman said. "Thank you. My whole life, I've been told I was too ugly for anyone to love. Watching you today, seeing how Captain Kim looks at you, hearing the delegates talk about your beauty, you've given hope to everyone like me." Kiva's eyes grew wet. She took the young woman's hands. "You were never too ugly. They were too blind. Remember that." Throughout the evening, Taeyang watched similar scenes repeat. Gren people approaching Kiva with gratitude. Some were crying, some just wanted to see her up close. To see that it was real. That one of their own was celebrated rather than hidden. Later, Somin found Taeyang on a balcony overlooking the hall. Inside, the party continued with music and dancing, and 100 different species mixing in ways that would have been impossible months ago. "You did it," Somin said. "You actually changed things." "We did it," Taeyang corrected. "Kiva did the hard part. I just refuse to be blind." "The Galactic Council is already discussing new beauty standard revisions," Somin continued. "And several species that were considered aesthetically challenged are suddenly being invited to diplomatic functions. The Gren Commonwealth has received more trade requests in the past week than in the previous decade." "Good," Taeyang said. "It's about time. Earth's stock has risen too," Somin added. "We're being called visionary. Brave. Some are even saying we understand galactic politics better than civilizations that have been doing it for millennia." "We don't," Taeyang said honestly. Hyun joined them, carrying 3 glasses of something that sparkled. "A toast," he said. "To the naive captain who gambled everything on the ugly princess. To the overlooked princess who saved the galaxy," Somin countered. "To both of them," Taeyang said. "And to everyone else who's been overlooked. May we all be seen clearly." They drank, watching the celebration inside. After a while, Somin and Hyun went back to join the party, but Taeyang stayed on the balcony. He was thinking about the journey from that first moment in the cold conference room, staring at 7 profiles, to now. "Hiding from your own wedding?" Kiva's voice came from behind him. He turned. She'd removed some of the ceremonial decorations, looking more comfortable. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how everyone said you were the wrong choice," Taeyang said. "About how it would ruin Earth's standing and damage both our peoples. About how it was naive and foolish." Kiva stepped closer. "And now? And now they're calling it the smartest diplomatic move in a generation," Taeyang said. "But they still don't understand. They think we got lucky. They think it was strategy." "What was it really?" Kiva asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "It was seeing you," Taeyang said simply. "Really seeing you. Not what others said you were, but what you actually are. That's not strategy. That's just being honest." Kiva kissed him then, gentle, and warm. "I love you, Taeyong Kim. My strange, honest human." "I love you too, Kiva," he replied. "My brilliant, beautiful wife." Years later, when Salmon wrote her memoirs as Earth's ambassador to the Gren Commonwealth, she included a chapter about that wedding. She wrote about how it changed galactic politics, how it opened doors for overlooked species, how it created new alliances and new ways of thinking about beauty and value. But her favorite part of the chapter described a moment she witnessed months after the wedding. Taeyong and Kiva were visiting a Gren colony world, working together on an agricultural project. It was difficult work, hands in the soil, surrounded by crops that were hybrids of Earth and Gren plants, thriving in conditions neither species could manage alone. Salmon had watched them work side by side, Kiva's scarred hands and Taeyong's human determination, solving problems together. At one point, Kiva looked up, dirt on her face, and smiled at something Taeyong said. He smiled back with such obvious love that Salmon had to look away, feeling like she was witnessing something too personal. That moment, Salmon wrote, captured the truth of what they'd accomplished. It wasn't about political victories or changing galactic standards. It was about two people from overlooked species seeing each other clearly and choosing each other completely. Everything else, all the political change and social progress, those were just side effects of that fundamental honesty. The memoir became required reading in diplomatic academies across the galaxy. Students studied the Earth-Gren alliance, analyzing the strategic benefits and political outcomes. They wrote papers about changing beauty standards and reassessing overlooked powers. But the part that stuck with readers, the part that got quoted most often, was Salmon's final paragraph. Captain Kim didn't choose Princess Kiva because he was clever enough to see strategic value others missed. He chose her because he was human enough to see a person when others saw only a category. In the end, that simple act of seeing clearly changed more than any strategy ever could. It changed how we all see each other, and in doing so, changed the galaxy itself. In the quiet of their home on the colony world, years after the wedding and the celebrations and the political changes, Taeyong and Kiva sat together watching their hybrid crops grow under an alien sun. They were older now, marked by time and work and life. "Do you ever regret it?" Kiva asked. "Choosing me? All the complications it caused?" Taeyong looked at her, using the deep seeing she'd taught him. He saw the brilliant engineer who'd saved trade routes. He saw the kind person who remembered everyone's names. He saw the woman who'd taught him that beauty was written in scars and strength and refusing to give up. He saw his wife, his partner, his love. "Every single day," he said, and she started to look worried until he continued, "I regret that I can only choose you once. I'd choose you 1,000 times if I could." Kiva laughed. That full, honest laugh that still transformed her face. "You're still a strange human, Taeyong Kim, and you're still the most beautiful being in the galaxy," he replied. Above them, the hybrid crops reached toward the sun. Proof that two different species could grow together into something neither could create alone. Below them, the soil mixed earth minerals with Gren nutrients, creating something new and strong. And beside each other, a human and a Gren sat hand in hand, overlooked no longer, proving that sometimes the best choice is the one everyone else is too blind to see.